Hello and welcome to Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us, the world has nowhere to turn for freedom. For the next hour, I will be presenting news, views, and guests that help keep the true spirit of America alive. And good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're listening to this show, in whichever time zone. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, British by birth, American by choice, and very happy to be here with you on this Tuesday evening, if you're listening live, or whenever you're listening, if you're listening to one of the recordings or one of the rebroadcasts, welcome to the show. Tonight's show is coming to you from New England. Yes, I'm up in Connecticut, in Hartford, Connecticut, due to a last-minute overnight business trip up here. Well, so that was all very last minute. But we're still able to do the show, and looking forward to perhaps coming back here, but not for the moment. Of course, up here in New England, one of the early primaries, New Hampshire, is drawing much closer. We're still a few months away. And then, of course, there's also Iowa. And with all these primaries, all sorts of things heating up. But before we get to that, I do want to play some couple of video clips that I picked up over the last couple of weeks. And the first one, I think you really will like. This is a retired admiral, and he was asked to speak at some forum, and he was actually introduced by John Kerry. Well, I think John Kerry might be a little disappointed that he did that, because, well, just listen to what this admiral had to say.
We're very pleased to have Admiral James Lyons with us. Sir, welcome.
Well, thank you, Frank. Sorry I missed the earlier presentations due to my 3-hour and 20-minute commute this morning. But, as a number of you heard me say before, we've had many opportunities to change the course of history. And it hasn't mattered whether it's been a Republican or Democratic administration. We failed every one of them, starting with Carter, with the takeover of our embassy. We could have cut off Khomeini and his Islamic fundamentalism at the knees. We were going to take Karg, and he rejected it. We could have walked in. The next time was the Marine barracks bombing. And you all probably wonder why we never responded. I won't go into the long detail, but the guy that sabotaged the strike, and I'm glad you're all sitting down, was the Secretary of Defense. Not once, but twice. Reagan approved the French wanted to do a combined strike, and Reagan approved it, and Weinberger wouldn't issue the order. I have personally talked to George Shultz and Bud McFarlane. They told me they pleaded with him, and he wouldn't do it. You have to say, who the hell got to him, or what got to him? I had briefed Weinberger at my headquarters at Pearl Harbor that summer. And this was going to be in August of '87. And the one who undercut us the most was our own chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Crow, at the time. If you go forward and you look at, we shot down by accident that Iranian civilian airliner a few months later. And what did Khomeini do? He said, I'm drinking from the chalice of poison. And he said, I have to make a truce with Saddam Hussein because the Americans have shown they're coming in on Iraq's side. Well, think of what the hell we could have done had we executed the strike we wanted to do in August of '87. You know, we all say we have to identify the threat. Well, I think the one who identified it the best was Erdogan from Turkey, when he said, Islam is Islam. There are no modifiers. Democracy is the train we ride to our ultimate objective. He couldn't have said it any plainer. And until you recognize that Islam is a political movement masquerading as a religion, you're never going to come to grips with it. And as far as a strategy, let me just conclude one thing. And as I just had in my latest op-ed, the Obama administration has a strategy. It's very simple. Any thinking American should be able to grasp it. It's anti-American, anti-Western, it's pro-Islamic, it's pro-Iranian, and pro-Muslim Brotherhood. And with that, I'll yield the mic.
Thank you, sir.
Well, that was some real, especially that bit at the end where he really told it like it is, but I'm sure he was not appreciated for that. In the chat room was saying, you know, some of the things that he said about who was taking decisions sounds like classified stuff to me. But then again, he's retired, he's old, what are they going to do about it? But, you know, this government is pretty vindictive, so keep your eyes open for the news. If you see anything about Admiral Ace Lyons, you'll know why, especially getting arrested. That's because of what he said here in these words. But you know, really a very, very major indictment of the current regime, but also some of the previous administrations as well. I have another sound clip that I want to run before I get into my analysis as well, and I think you'll like this one. This is one from that Rush Limbaugh did the other day. Just very short, but it's very interesting. Bear with me. Listen to the end, because it's like a joke. The punchline comes at the end.
Everybody's making immigration proposals these days. Let me add mine to the mix. Call it the Limbaugh laws. First, you immigrate to our country, you have to speak the native language. You have to be a professional or an investor. No unskilled workers allowed. Also, there'll be no special bilingual programs in the schools with the Limbaugh laws, no special ballots for elections, no government business will be conducted in your language. Foreigners will not have the right to vote or hold political office. If you're in our country, you cannot be a burden to taxpayers. You are not entitled to welfare or food stamps or other government goodies. You can come if you invest here, an amount equal to 40,000 times a daily minimum wage. If not, stay home. But if you want to buy land, it'll be restricted. No waterfront, for instance, and as a foreigner, you have to relinquish individual rights to the property. And another thing, you don't have the right to protest. You're allowed no demonstrations, no foreign flag waving, no political organizing, no bad-mouthing our president or his policies. You're a foreigner. Shut your mouth or get out. And if you come here illegally, you're going to jail. Now, you think the Limbaugh laws are harsh? Well, every one of the laws I just mentioned are actual laws of Mexico today. That's how the Mexican government handles immigrants to their country. Yet Mexicans come here illegally and protest in our streets. How do you say double standard in Spanish? How about no mas?
Very, very interesting, don't you think? All those laws, and yet Mexico is always berating us for the way we treat our illegal immigrants. Amazing, isn't it, how the left, and remember, Mexico does have a very left-wing government, how the left always sees things the way they want and bends everything the way they want, and can be very hypocritical. And that actually, I wish that this was getting a lot more press, a lot more visibility in the media, but of course the media would never dare share this. And unfortunately, because this really ought to be plastered on billboards everywhere and broadcast in loudspeakers in the street, like they used to do in Germany and Russia in the 30s. Or am I being too harsh, just like it sounded like Rush was being with his limbo laws? I don't know. Anyway, okay, folks, let's go back. The primaries seem to be heating up. It's still, a number of months till the primaries, and I said I'm up here in New England, not too close to New Hampshire, but still. And, of course, New Hampshire and Iowa are some of the early primaries, and then South Carolina. So people are watching the polls in those areas and watching the national polls. Well, I've noticed, and I'm sure that many of my listeners have, that the establishment media, and nowadays that also includes Fox News Channel, seem to be looking for every single little excuse to trumpet a poll where Donald is being caught up by one of the other candidates. Being caught up in most cases means that his lead has dropped a few points compared to some other poll. So, of course, this week, the media pretty much wet themselves when the most recent NBC poll showed Ben Carson only a point behind Trump. Of course, it is an NBC poll, which is, well, first of all, we expect them to be biased, but it's also so reliable, these NBC polls, that a week earlier, NBC themselves had ignored their own poll in that week, which was showing, I think, roughly a 10-point lead for Trump, in favor of a CNN poll, which showed him only 5 points ahead. So they were talking about the CNN poll, and Donald Trump happened to be interviewed on the NBC morning show, and he asked them point blank why they were referencing the CNN poll instead of their own, and called them biased, right on the air. Go Donald, because he's right. They are biased. Why weren't they referencing their own poll? Well, so now there's a poll where Ben Carson is equal with Trump, within the margin of error, 1%, as well within the margin of error, but of dubious reliability. And noticeably, the media ignored another recent poll where Donald actually broke the 40% barrier. So he's also done that. And that's the first time any of the candidates, well, other than Hill-Lier, have broken the 40% barrier. And with Hill-Lier, we're looking at the other way. Which barrier is she breaking on the way down, right? She started off at 60%, then it got to 50%. Now she's probably at 45%. When's she going to break the 40% barrier? We're going in the wrong direction. Will she still be around in 6 to 8 weeks? Interesting. I don't know. Do you know? No, I don't. But we'll see. Anyway, so I'm going to talk a bit more about the polls, but before we do that, it is, as ever, time for a quick commercial break. So if you will stick with me, I will be right back after these messages.
You can lose 10, 20, 30 pounds or more with Maximum Slim's first ever rapid weight loss guarantee. Today, you get Maximum Slim, an advanced fat and carb blocker, absolutely risk-free. The all-natural ingredients in Maximum Slim are a powerful weight loss combination. The Maximum Slim formula turns your body into a fat-burning furnace that supercharges your weight loss. Advanced fat and carb blocker stops the breakdown of sugar so your body doesn't store it as fat. Today, you'll get both of these products absolutely risk-free with no obligation. Only pay shipping. There are no expensive meal plans or exhausting DVDs. Just take Maximum Slim twice a day. It's fast, simple, and now it's guaranteed. Look, you can start losing weight today or not. Go back to your high school days and wear your favorite jeans again. Guaranteed. Call now and get both weight loss formulas free. Call 800-451-0228. 800-451-0228. That's 800-451-0228.
Doc, you gotta give it to me straight.
All right.
'Cause I'm dying here. I mean, take a look at this letter from the IRS.
Oh, my.
This is killing me, Doc. I tell you, it's killing me.
Cheer up, my friend.
Huh?
The tax doctor is here. My diagnosis tells me that you're going to be just fine.
Really?
The tax doctor will not rest until we find you the best possible tax settlement.
Really, Doc?
Guaranteed.
If the IRS claims you owe them $10,000 or more in business or personal back taxes, call a tax doctor right now. We could save you up to 75% if you qualify. Guaranteed or you pay nothing. Call right now for free details.
800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. That's 800-917-8546.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And folks, thanks for sticking with me through that break. Talking about the polls at the moment, and just want to say hi to a Paul, not a poll, but a Paul, who's in the chat room, and of course Rex is there as well. Thanks for coming, guys. And anybody else who's listening live, remember you can click on the speech button and join us in the chat room. The guys there chat amongst themselves, and in the commercial breaks I try to come in and join you there and add some color commentary. For those of you that are listening to the recordings or rebroadcast, just send me an email at stefan@patrickcomelately.us, and I'd love to hear your feedback, your questions, your comments. Or you can go to www.patrickcomelately.us. There's a button there, contact form, click on that, and you can send me your feedback, questions, comments, etc. as well. Love to hear from my listeners. But anyway, let's go back to the polls. Polls have been roller coastering. There's really just a couple of things constant. For most of them, Donald remains on top, and I'm talking primarily about the GOP polls here, because I want to comment on that and the GOP and the establishment, obviously. So they're going roller coastering, especially in the lower levels, all sorts of different people going up and down, and a lot of unexpected people going down, actually. But there's one thing that I think is very clear, that the American public, or perhaps it's just the GOP voters who are being asked their opinion, are fed up with the liberal elites in Washington that call themselves Republicans. Because that's the way I see them. They are almost liberals, right? Almost, a large majority of them, once they get up to Washington, they become rhinos. Look at all the polls, and across the board, even when the numbers vary, what is constant, that the top three are always the DC outsiders: Trump, Carson, and Fiorina. And the other establishment GOP figures, Bush, Kasich, Graham, they're dropping like stones. I think Graham comes in at 0% most of the time. Bush is down to 7% in most things. Other establishment GOP figures, not establishment, let's say anti-establishment, but DC experienced ones like Cruz, who's obviously an outsider, Rubio, perhaps less of an outsider, they're still in the middle. And then there's one other outsider who's making no headway either, and seems to be following Jeb Bush in the direction down, and that is, of course, Paul Rand. He's been doing his campaign, I think, no good by his more and more negative remarks about the front runner. I think he was thinking that by being confrontational like Trump is, that it would bring his numbers up. Doesn't work for him. We expect it from Trump. We don't expect it from Paul Rand. Apparently, Paul Rand, his major super PAC, has stopped collecting money, saying that Rand's quest is becoming futile. So I think we can expect at least one more dropout in the near future, and who knows, there may be more. Graham said recently, Lindsey Graham said, there's no way he's going to drop out, but he's not spending money on any kind of campaign. I can't imagine with the numbers he has, he's not getting any money. And others in the single digits have to be thinking hard about whether they continue and whether they're going to get enough money. And of course, all along, Trump's just saying, well, I don't need to worry about how much money I'm getting because I'm just going to fund this all myself. So if we go back, as I said, the top three are the outsiders. The next two underneath, most of the time, are also, well, they're DC people, but they're outsiders in DC, right? Cruz and Rubio. So obviously, it's displeasure with the whole Washington GOP crowd that's causing that, and it's so obvious that a key leader of those weak toffee-nosed salon socialists saw the writing on the wall and called it quits. Yep, as we all know, our dear friend, Crybaby Boehner, finally threw in the towel. Well, or said that he was going to throw it in at the end of October, so in about a month's time. Now, of course, the turncoats in Washington spouted their eulogies, if I can use that term, but they're, the nice things they were saying about him. And many have spoke of how much he accomplished in his time in public service. Well, what they failed to mention, as far as I'm concerned, is what he accomplished in the last couple of years was supporting Obama's agenda. He didn't really do very much for our agenda, even though we voted him in. He was violently against the Tea Party, even though the Tea Party was the one that brought the Republicans back into power. And he was unable or unwilling to offer any effective resistance to almost anything that King Barry pushed down our throats. So, luckily, he saw that there was a good chance he might not survive a speakership challenge. And remember, before the recess, somebody had already submitted the intention to have him challenged. And so I think he was probably checking with folks, and he heard that it might not be easy for him to survive that. So instead, he decided to announce his resignation. Now, it's going to be interesting to see who takes over as his job. Obviously, his right-hand man, Kevin McCarthy, is an obvious choice, and he's already thrown his hat in the ring. The only issue with that is there's not going to be much change in the policies going forward if Kevin McCarthy gets in. Now, of course, if Kevin McCarthy becomes Speaker, that means the position of the Leader of the House is open. If we could perhaps get a decent, honest Conservative to run for and win that position, we would have somebody on the leadership team to perhaps provide more Conservative input and help stiffen the backbone of these namby-pamby GOP elitists in D.C. Now, McCarthy's win is not a given. I am hearing rumors that Dan Webster might run. He did make an attempt about a year ago, and that was not taken very well by the GOP Washington establishment because he was running against Boehner at the time, who was their golden boy. I would like Dan Webster in that role. I think I believe he's an honest man and probably make a good speaker. He's not as conservative as some would like, but a good, solid consensus guy and honest. And he might be able to work with the regressives and work in a way that he can stand up to their idea of bipartisanship, which means our way or the highway, or maybe our way or the shutdown is the one they're using most of the time. I do have to say, full disclosure here, I did work for Dan Webster's campaign in 2010 when we were trying to successfully oust that loud oaf Alan Disgrayson. I've mentioned a few times, unfortunately he was able to get back when they did some disgrace, and then he got brought back. But okay, I'm away from there. But I did work for Dan Webster, and although I didn't, spend a lot of time for him, obviously I was looking and watching him, finding out about him, and everything that I found out about him was very good. So he would be a good guy. Like I said, not as conservative as some would like, but I think he's a good consensus guy. And I think that is important. He does try and get everybody working together, and he is open to talking to people. There's too much in your face all the time. The vote for both the Speaker and the Leader of the House should take place in a week or two at most, they've said. Obviously, it needs to be done before the end of October because that's when John Boehner will resign. Apparently, Trey Gowdy is not prepared to relinquish his Benghazi committee leadership role, so he has declined running for either post. I know Jason Chaffetz from Utah was trying to get him in there, but maybe we need him more in his Benghazi position, and maybe that experience would work out well for us when it comes time to actually indict Hillier and take her to court for all the things, prosecute her for all her transgressions. Of course, that might not be possible because we don't know. You never know. Our dear friend King Barry might give her a full pardon for all of her transgressions in exchange for her stepping aside to allow crazy Uncle Joe to run. At the moment, some of the polls are saying if he runs, he is more popular than most of the key GOP figures, and he would beat them. I think in the end that wouldn't happen. Heaven help this country if a crazy guy, such a dumb guy like that, is able to get in. He makes W look like Einstein, and it would be really bad. But I know that if Obama thinks that Hillier doesn't have a chance, and there's no love lost between the Clintons and the Obamas, so he wouldn't mind getting rid of her anyway. But if he could persuade her to step aside, and he thinks crazy Uncle Joe will have a better chance of winning the presidency, I think he'd do that. In one way, he could offer a full pardon when he leaves office. As presidents, they have this want to do at the end. So maybe that would happen. Who knows? But anyway, I see we're getting to time for our next commercial break, so I think this is a good point to do that. And I will be back right after these messages. And once again, before we go to the messages, just remember, if you're listening live, do click on the speech button and join us in the chat room.
Patriot come lately. British by birth. American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.
Every day, millions of Americans grow more concerned about the future of our great nation. The truth is, over the last century, a small but powerful collectivist movement known as progressivism has debased our politics, our culture, and our currency. We're just a small step from falling into 1,000 years of darkness, as Ronald Reagan warned. Friend, this is Pat Boone with an important free offer on a hot new book called The Great Withdrawal by Craig Smith and Lowell Ponte. This new book explains how we, the people, can end this fatal detour into big government and get back on the path of faith and freedom charted by our founders. Call now for a free copy of the hot new book called The Great Withdrawal.
Call now for your free copy. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. That's 800-978-3901.
Owe $10,000 or more to the IRS that you can't pay? Call now for immediate help. At the Tax Relief Line, we help people just like you. If you take on the IRS alone, you could be facing levies, liens, even wage garnishments, personal or business tax issues. If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS, call now and see if you can pay less. They can freeze your bank accounts, even garnish your wages. Call the Tax Relief Line now for immediate help. Our expert team of tax professionals will negotiate your tax problem and deal with the IRS for you. If the IRS is threatening you with levies, wage garnishments, or seizing your assets, call now and see if you can pay the IRS less.
888-789-5043. 888-789-5043. 888-789-5043. 888-789-5043.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, keeping the spirit of America alive, a proud member of the Red State Talk Radio Network. And thanks for sticking with us. We're into the second half of the show, talking about some comments I have on what's going on. Another big thing has been, of course, Planned Parenthood, and especially this week. But while we were talking about the GOP and their sort of spineless, ineffectual, useless actions in D.C., one of the opportunities to exercise the will of the people, and let's face it, most of the polls say over 70% of the people that are asked say that perhaps Planned Parenthood should lose its taxpayer money. The D.C. GOP cowards ignored this will of the people and ignored any attempts to defund Planned Parenthood, which is probably another reason why we're so fed up with the useless leadership and why we're looking for outsiders to be the candidate. Instead of trying to do anything, it just seems all they say is, well, we can't. These Republicans anything that the GOP presented couldn't get by him. And he basically said, well, you know, the results of elections count. We won, so sit down and shut up, basically. But now that the regressives are in the minority, the Rasputin of the Senate still controls what does and does not get through. Now, I understand that this is how the founders designed the system, but how are the regressives managing to manipulate the system while they're in power and get things through that we didn't want? And they didn't have a supermajority. And, or should the question be, why was the GOP so ineffective at blocking things that the Dems wanted at the time that the GOP was in the minority? the regressives are now in the minority, and they are still able to block everything. Now, let's remember, when the GOP was in the minority and did try to block things, the first thing that would happen is that the left would jump up and scream and say, oh, the GOP, it's the party of no, bad, 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 the media, etc. Well, of course, now, I don't know. Anyway, let's go back to the Planned Parenthood funding or defunding. There was a marathon congressional committee session today. The head of Planned Parenthood was invited to come and be questioned by Congress. So it turned out to be a very partisan type meeting, like they all are there, with the regressives on one side, so defending anything left-wing. So in Benghazi, it's, well, this is a waste of time and nothing happened, yada, yada, yada. And here, Elijah Cumming was playing his usual attack dog role, attacking any of the factual arguments presented by the Republican questioners with inane counter-arguments, mostly based on nonsense. The head of Planned Parenthood herself was doing a pretty good job with accurate information, because she was talking, for example, about the videos being heavily edited. Well, yeah, heavily edited. It's been proven that those videos were not heavily edited at all. In actual fact, the only thing that was edited about them was the fact that that they were only cut for bathroom breaks. Thank goodness, we don't want to see that on video. And meals, at least some of the meals, because there were some videos that were actually taken at meals. And this was confirmed by a true forensic investigation, a company that does this all the time, and was able to confirm that the uncut videos, now most people haven't seen the uncut videos because most of the news people are taking just chunks, small chunks of the video and showing it. But the uncut videos are shown to be virtually uncut, only for things that are not important. But this head of Planned Parenthood was still, I would almost say, screaming, because apparently it was a pretty contentious meeting. But to me, it's just screaming, even if she's not actually screaming, but just spouting this inane nonsense about these being heavily edited videos. And you know the reason she does it? Remember what Goebbels said in 1930? If the lie is big enough, people will believe it. You just shout it loud enough and people will believe it. This is all 1930s Nazi techniques that the regressives are very good at. Then again, we've got to remember where the Nazis learnt it from, because they learnt it from the regressives in the 1910, 1920, 1930 time frame, the regressives in America. Yeah, that's people like Woodrow Wilson, exactly, taught, and his cronies taught the Nazis how to do their propaganda, and now today's regressives are using it. Anyway, so these videos basically are now proven to be uncut. They have not been heavily edited. They are the truth, what was said there. And by the way, if you can stomach it, the full videos are now available on YouTube. So take a look and make your own decision. There were some other interesting snippets that came out. Under pressure, the head of Planned Parenthood had to admit that she has a salary of over $500,000, $520,000 to be exact. Oh dear. I thought the left was against high CEO salaries. But obviously not when it's Planned Parenthood. She also had to admit that 86% of Planned Parenthood's income, and I looked at that number, I said there must be a mistake there, but that's the number that was published in reports of this congressional inquisition, as Elijah Cumming, I believe, called it. 86% comes from performing abortions. Presumably that includes the revenue from selling off of baby parts. Now, all along, the left has been trumpeting, abortion's only 3% of the activities of Planned Parenthood. They do all sorts of other good things. So if you get 86% of your income from 3% of your total work, I think private industry would be fighting wildly if there was a way to get 80% of income from 3% of your activities. In actual fact, they'd probably give up the other 97% and just focus on the 3%. I wonder, is that what Planned Parenthood was doing? Is that 3% not 3%, but a much greater percent? If the income's 86%, I can hardly believe that their abortion activities are actually 3%. So what do they actually do? Well, the head of Planned Parenthood also had to admit that zero, zilch of their facilities have mammogram machines. So we're always told about how mammograms are so important for women, and I agree that it is an important thing. But if you don't do it at Planned Parenthood, or you're doing it somewhere else, what else do you do there then? So if we've got this supposedly 3% of their activities, which are abortions, all the other things, they're not doing mammograms. Well, could all the other non-abortion things be taken over by regional health facilities? So it turns out our useless GOP representatives who are attacking this woman, and she deserves to be attacked, and they were barking up the wrong tree for most of this very long session, and apparently it was 5 or 6 hours long, and she complained about that, and the left were complaining about how this poor woman was being treated, because they're trying to take it into a woman thing, attacking women. No, we're not attacking women, we're attacking an organization which is misusing taxpayer funds. It just so happens that they are heavily involved with women's health care, and supposedly Donald Trump said there are some things that they do, some good things they do, and there's some bad things they do. Well, it looks like 86% of their income is bad things. So what about the rest? So, yes, so what do they actually do? Well, our GOP representatives, useless as they are, they were focusing on extravagant lifestyles and expenses and travel budgets, and the fact that this woman was getting over $500,000 in an annual salary, and using that as an argument against taxpayer funding. I think that they should have been driving straight to the heart of the matter, and that is, what else is it that Planned Parenthood does other than abortions? They obviously don't do mammograms, so what else do they do? And if they want to have taxpayer funding for those other activities, they will have to divest. They will have to split off the abortion industry side of it, so that the accounting is totally at arm's length. Today, it's easy to say, well, we get a pot of money. Yes, we're not going to spend any of the taxpayer money on abortions, but everything around it, all the overhead, all the administration, all the things on the edge, they're covered by this taxpayer money, and other money that Planned Parenthood gets from elsewhere is then used to pay for the abortions. If you split it off into two groups, it would be transparent, and then the right wing can have their no money for abortions. It'll be very clear and transparent, and the left cannot complain that women can't get abortions. They'll still be able to get them. The issue is the procedures might become a tad more expensive for the customers because there's no taxpayer money secretly underhandedly being directed towards paying for the costs associated with the abortions. And that, my friends, is why the aggressives are making such a huge stink about everything. Because they know that if, while the right wants to ban abortions, they could also make them very expensive, and then that would make it very difficult to do as well. Okay, folks, I see clock is ticking again. Time for another quick commercial break. I will be back shortly.
The offer of a franchise can only be made through delivery of a franchise disclosure document. Imagine yourself being a leader in America's fastest growing demographic category. More than 10,000 people a day turn 65, and a large percentage are going to need a helping hand at home or in choosing the right assisted living community. Always Best Care is looking for people who've excelled at everything they've done, but they're seeking a new challenge. Always Best Care is one of the fastest growing companies in this explosive field. We're looking for 25 new franchisees to keep our booming business growing. We'll back you up with the strongest award-winning marketing program in the industry, and we'll provide the special training and support that's fueled our growth to prepare you for this great opportunity. All that's missing is you. Call Always Best Care toll-free at 1-800-643-7508. That's 1-800-643-7508. For Always Best Care, 1-800-643-7508. Call today.
If you're diabetic, this message could change your life. Is your blood sugar out of control even when you do all the right stuff? Are you afraid of diabetic blindness and the risk of amputation, as well as all those other side effects? Well, you should be. Is there anything that could help manage your blood sugar? Nobetes is a natural supplement that may quickly and dramatically lower your blood sugar.
My name is Bob Corder. I've been using Nobetes for about 3.5 to 4 months now, and in the first 3 months, I've actually lowered my blood sugars from 500s down to 139, and then it dropped to 88 to 93.
My name is Kirsten. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and while taking Nobetes, my blood sugar levels dropped from 295 to 115 in just 1 day.
The FDA hasn't evaluated these statements, and Nobetes isn't intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. But for many, it's helped drop their blood sugar. So if you've been evaluated with high blood sugar, don't delay. Evaluate Nobetes now. Call 800-551-8302 and get your free bottle. Just cover shipping and handling. Call 800-551-8302. That's 800-551-8302.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And folks, we're into the final segment of the show, and we've been talking about the polls, and then we got on to Planned Parenthood, and I want to go back to the polls. Right now, the sort of number 2 front runner behind Trump has been Ben Carson, and we've just been talking about medical topics. I think Ben Carson would be a great Surgeon General, and I hope that some of the nasty personal name calling and acrimony during this campaign season doesn't preclude the better of the GOP losers, the ones that don't make the nomination, being subsumed into the Trump administration in some way. And Carson, as I said, I think would be a good one for Surgeon General. As Donald Trump said about Carly, I don't really see Ben Carson having the personas as president. Yes, he says all the right things, but do you really see him standing up to the Russian bully? I just think he's too nice a person, quiet-spoken. Putin is waltzing over dear leader right now, making a total fool of him, and also doing what Putin has been scheming to do for years. pull the rug from under the United States. He's never forgiven us for the breakdown and breakup of the USSR, and would do anything to do the same to us. And right now, he's making a very good job of that. I'm ashamed to say. So I can see someone like Trump standing up to him, but I can't really see a Ben Carson. A Carly, maybe. But I think she's got a lot of baggage, and more is coming out about her history. So I don't think she's the right person. Yeah, if Hillary did manage to hang on, Carly would be a good foil, because it would kind of enable or disable Hillary from saying vote for me, because you get a woman in the White House, which she's been saying. And so say, well, what's that got to do with it? I thought we were supposed to be looking for the best person, not just a woman because it's a woman's time. But that's exactly what she's saying. So Carly would kind of offset that. But I agree with Trump. I don't see her having the personas. I don't really see Ben Carson having the persona. So I'm surprised that he's that high up in the polls. But some polls yes, some polls no. So we'll see. So obviously I'm kind of, right now, I'm kind of, you may guess, I'm kind of for Trump. Do I think Trump is perfect? No. Far from. He's got, apparently I wasn't able to listen to his tax speech. Apparently out of that, or in the past, I know he has also said that he believes in a single-payer system, which is something most conservatives say, no, we want to really have it private industry and a lot more privatized than Obama was allowing happen. His tax plan is okay. I would have preferred the fair tax. A lot of my listeners will know I think the fair tax would be better. But his tax plan is kind of Reagan-esque, similar to what Reagan did. Look what happened then. Things went well. So, okay. So, again, is he perfect? No. Well, tell me who's better. Who's going to stand up and do the kind of deals? Who's going to get things done? I talked last week about how Trump took over the renovation of an ice rink that the city of New York had estimated at 2 or 2.5 years. It hadn't been finished in 6 years, and Trump came in, and in 3 months everything was done. Right now, it was probably quite far along, but still 6 years not finished, and he finished it all off in 3 months. It's that get it done attitude that we need in Washington, and kind of, stir things up. Now, this week I also heard about another great example of his deal making. And I can just see him doing something like this to Putin, to Iran, to the Saudis, to Venezuela, to all our enemies, and maybe nice things to our allies, because that's the way he is. Talked about some of his charitable things. So, but think about doing this to Putin. Some time ago, he bought a golf course in Florida, and he redevelops them. This golf course was in a very hoity-toity area, and they have some pretty strict, ordinances, city ordinances. So he bought the golf course, he erected a flagpole. He likes to have a flagpole, a big American flag line on it. So he erected the flagpole. Unfortunately, the flagpole was 50 feet high. The city ordinances flagpoles to 30 feet. Well, of course, when they found out about that, the city, who probably didn't like him anyway, some of the cities down there can be pretty left-wing, and even if they're Republican, they don't really like a brash person like dear Donald. So they didn't like him, so they immediately slapped a fine on him. The fines by the ordinance are $1,000 a day. Well, Trump was fighting it, yada, 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 and after 125 days, it reached $125,000. So Trump finally said, okay, listen guys, I have a suggestion. I will donate this $125,000 to veterans charities, and I will take down the flagpole and put one up of 30 feet. If you will then basically forget about the fine. Well, the city sort of, after probably they've been fighting Trump for a while. And don't forget, in addition to that $125,000, Trump's probably already been spending a lot on lawyers' fees. But the city had to as well. So they said, you know what? Yes, we'll forget the fines if you do that. So Trump donated the money. He took down the flagpole. And then in came the backhoes. And they started building a hill where the flagpole had been. They added dirt, landscaped around it, etc., and built that hill up until it was 20 feet high. And then he installed a 30-foot high flagpole on top of that hill. End result, the American flag proudly flew 50 feet again above the surrounding area without breaking any local ordinances. This is the sort of clever deal-making that I think is lacking in DC today, and another reason that I say, while he is not perfect, Trump is probably the best person for America at this time. And I see, folks, I've gone a little over my time here, so my apologies for that. In the recordings, I'll have to shorten that. But I hope you enjoyed this week. Please join me again next week. It should be fun again. So much going on. I will say TTFN. Hopefully the music will start. Yep. This is time to say goodbye, and talk to you again next week. Thanks for coming. Thank you for listening to the show. I hope that you enjoyed tonight's topics. Whether you listened live, to a recording, or to a rebroadcast, I appreciate the time you share with me. We need to spread the message of liberty far and wide, so please tell your friends and family about the show. Thank you for helping to keep the beacon of hope burning. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately, signing off. God bless America, and remember, L3, long live liberty.